Okay, just a couple of notes on behavioral contrast. Get my slide up for you guys. Hang on. Okay, gotta get through this. Okay, so what we're doing with behavioral contrast, I'm sure there's an easier way. Okay, here we go. Is we're doing more with operant conditioning now. We're gonna, we want to explain behavior, but it doesn't happen in a vacuum. The things that we find reinforcing or punishing, part of the reason they have those properties is how they compare to other things we can do, right? We always have choices, and we often will choose the most reinforcing, whether that's watching TV or studying or going out with friends. We will choose what's most reinforcing. Now, sometimes, usually going out with friends is more reinforcing than studying until it's the night before the exam and you're just a big ball of nerves, and it's reinforcing to get rid of your anxiety by studying, and that gets to the top of the list. So behavioral contrast has a bit to do with that. How does our behavior change based on how reinforcing or punishing we find something? Now, here's what's interesting about it. Here's the key thing. It's not, so I have a behavior I can do. I can study. Okay. Whether or not I do that is not just what's my reinforcer for that behavior. Okay. What's important also, and this is what behavioral contrast is getting at, what's also important is how reinforcing are my other choices. So studying has a certain amount of reinforcement for me, but so does going out with my friends. And it's kind of like, what's happening over there? What's happening with the reinforcer there that affects my choice to study? So, if we think about past experiences, I don't want to go into these examples. Your book has good examples, and they do the being poor example. Let's do this rat study real quick. Here are 3 groups of rats, right? Now, in phase 1, they got different amounts of food. Some got a little bit, some got 16, some got a lot. In phase 2, they're all getting the same amount, okay? And what the dependent variable is, the behavior is, they're just at one end of an alley and the food's at the other. And so we're just timing how long does it take them to run down and get their food, their reward. Behavior is run down the alley, this just little wooden runway, and the reinforcer is you get your food. Now, if they're all getting the same amount of food, the same amount of reinforcement, and that's all that mattered, we should expect them to run take the same number of seconds to get there. It's the same reinforcer. But the thing is, they have different amounts of reinforcement history. For some, getting 16 pellets is like, woo, awesome, this is great. It's 4 times more than I used to get. For some, there's no change. And for some, all of a sudden, oh, this is crappy. 16 pellets. I used to get 64, man. They're like the spoiled rats, the rich spoiled rats, right? And now they're like, well, this is no big deal. So what do you expect to see for their running time? I mean, for the guys that are getting 16 and 16, you don't expect any change. It's just everything's normal and they're doing their running, right? For the guys that all of a sudden, this is awesome, I'm getting a lot, they should run faster. And the guys were, oh, this sucks, they should run slower. And that's what they found, okay? So what it tells you is it's not just the absolute amount of reinforcement for this behavior. You run, you get 16 pellets. It's how does it compare to your past experiences or your other choices? Okay, so that's what behavioral contrast does. Now, here's the thing. I want you to be able to read examples or create examples of what we would call positive or negative behavioral contrast. And you have a worksheet on this. Now, here's how you do it. There's 2 behaviors, all right? So I hope I'm not giving away quiz questions, but let me we'll do, let's do studying and going out with your friends. The 2 behaviors. They each have a certain amount of reinforcement. Now, what I have to do is, in the scenario, in the story, the reinforcer for one of the 2 behaviors is going to change. Okay, so say I could study or I can hang out with my friends, and there's some kind of reinforcement. And I can do that every night. I get to choose, right? Now, let's say one night, the reinforcement for going out with my friends is really awesome. Like there's some, oh, we got free tickets to this new movie I really want to see. All right, so if I choose to do this, I'm going to have a bigger than normal reinforcer. Okay, now, knowing that this reinforcement over here for this hanging out with my friends behavior has gotten bigger. The fact that I actually do that more, I spend more time with my friends, doesn't need explaining. Okay, that's, yeah, okay, there's more reinforcement, you go out with your friends. The thing is, what if I spend less time studying? And this isn't just because I can't do both at the same time. Let's say, over the course of the weekend, let's do it this way. I have these friends I hang out with, and one of them, we get a new friend, and they're really super fun, and it makes hanging out with these people way more fun than it even used to be because of our new friend. And all during the week, I have time to do both things, hang out with people and study. So let's say in this week, I'm now spending more time hanging out, and I still have plenty of time to study, but I study less. Now, between these two behaviors, on one of them, the reinforcer has changed. The hanging out with friends has become better. And in one, whatever my reinforcement for studying has not changed. The label positive or negative behavioral contrast is applied to the behavior where nothing has changed. Okay, in studying, whatever my reinforcer is, that's still there and nothing's changed there. But between these things, I am spending less time studying, even though my reinforcement hasn't changed. And I'm spending more time over here. Now, what you do is you identify the behavior where the reinforcer has not changed. In this example, it's studying. Then, if the amount of time you spend on this behavior goes up, we call it positive behavioral contrast. If it goes down, we call it negative behavioral contrast. So in this example, hanging out with friends has become more reinforcing. We have this really funny new friend, and I do that more. No surprise. The thing is, I'm studying less, and the reinforcer has not changed for studying, yet my behavior has gone down. So that gets a label. It's called negative behavioral contrast. Okay. Try the worksheet. There's two behaviors. The reinforcement for one will get better or worse, and the behavior for that will go up or down. The reinforcer for the other will not change. So look at that one. And then if you spend more time doing it, call it positive. If you spend less time, call it negative. Okay, that's all you need to do to get those contrast examples. Now, anticipatory contrast, there's only one behavior you're looking at. The reinforcer has not changed, but you expect it to in the future. So that's like, if you're eating cookies out of a bag, and if you actually look and you go, oh, it's the last cookie, right? And you're like, oh, or it's the last Dorito. And you reach in, and it's just as reinforcing as it would be. It's just the same cookie. But because it's the last cookie, you're like, and you behave differently. You're like, oh, it's so delicious, right? Because you think it'll be ending. If I, let's say I swing into Dunkin' Donuts, like, I don't know, once a month on my way to work, get a donut, old-fashioned donuts, a little coffee. But I see a sign that says this Dunkin' Donuts is closing, in a month. I might drive in there 2 times a week, and the donuts aren't any better, the coffee's not any better. It's just like, oh, it's gonna go away. So that's, compared to the future when I'm not gonna have this reinforcer is gonna go away. All of a sudden, I increase my behavior, even though the specific reinforcement has not changed. I still get the same donuts and coffee, but also I'm doing my behavior more because I anticipate a change in the rate of reinforcement. So, okay, hopefully that helps. Behavioral contrast.